During times of uncertainty, it's so easy to get into this survival mindset we all know too well from serving in the military. But what if you could shift your perspective from looking for the next big epic thing to happen as soon as possible to finding the small daily advantages that stack up to epic wins years down the road? In today's episode of Ambitious Vet, you'll be able to gain the key fundamental insights to becoming a more successful business leader. Also, what you need to do to become more valuable to the marketplace and potential investors, and much, much more. Stay tuned.
Over the long run, being successful in life, I think, for me at least, has a lot to do with taking all the little advantages where you can and letting those stack up over time. You know, I don't really look anymore for the big kung fu flip.
Two things you need to ask Santa for this Christmas, Ambitious Vet. One, street parking membership, and two, brute force sandbags. Thanks to Brute Force Sandbags for bringing today's show. Ambitious Vet, these sandbags are without a doubt the top-selling, top-performing, and most used sandbag in the industry. This sandbag is found everywhere from garage gyms to CrossFit boxes to the U.S. Navy and will humble even the most athletic athletes right out of the gate. Check out all their gear, including their holiday collection, garage gym bundles, and training content so you know how to maximize the gear in the shortest amount of time. Train accordingly today with 100% American-made training products built for the toughest training on the planet. Ambitious Vet, if you haven't already, click the link in the show notes below and explore all their inventory. Welcome to the Ambitious Vet Podcast. My name is Chris Hoffman. I'm a Marine Corps combat veteran turned social entrepreneur. Here I dive into the trenches with today's most ambitious, goal-oriented, and growth-minded military veterans on the planet to empower you with the golden grenades needed to break through new levels of satisfaction, fulfillment, or maybe it's just success after stability is no longer a challenge to overcome. Ambitious Vet, if you haven't already, buckle up. It's time to grow and advance in your life.
It's time to get into the trenches, dig into your purpose, and fire up your life fulfillment. The Ambitious Vet Podcast starts now.
What's going on, Ambitious Vet? We are right back inside the trenches today with Alex Chompff. Alex is the Executive Director of Evolution Accelerator in Sacramento, California. Evolution helps growth companies to secure millions of dollars in private equity investment through coaching, connections, and access to capital. Prior to Evolution, Alex served as Director of Technology at Kleiner Perkins, Caulfield and Byers, Integral Capital Partners, and the Barksdale Group. Prior to KPCB, Alex served in the United States Marine Corps Infantry. Alex, brother, are you there?
I am, and thank you very, very much for inviting me. So glad to be here. Such an honor.
Yeah, it's definitely, it goes back and forth. And as I was just binge watching the YouTube videos on Evolution's just content, I was just moved by a Marine like yourself have the poise that you have. I was like, I'm still trying to shake off the intensity, man. And, you're just so calm, cool, and collected, but, just how you can simplify complex business ideas in like one word or 3-word sentences is just absolutely amazing. So I'm excited to hear your golden grenades, brother.
Well, I'm really glad to be here. And Chris, it was very nice to meet you on Mark's show. And, as a second generation Marine, and, my wife's people are all Army, right? So her pop's regular Army from Vietnam era Korea. And her brother was 82nd in the first Gulf War. And that's when I went in 91. But, that whole thing was basically over before I was out of boot camp. So I ended up serving largely in peacetime, which is very, very different from today's vet. Yeah, today's vet has come home from, decades of conflict, right? Been all over the world. In my case, the Marine Corps was exciting and fun and challenging, and had its moments of boredom and its moments of terror. But
Yep.
yeah, it's very different from today. It's more like my father's generation when they came home. So yeah, it's very nice to be here. It's very nice to support the community.
Yeah, for sure. We're grateful to have you, brother. So, can you just kind of fill the gaps of that introduction, somewhat of your background, and maybe let an ambitious vet know a little bit about a personal habit that most people may not know about you?
Well, like in terms of filling in the gaps,
Yeah.
I'm a California native, and so is my wife. And I grew up in Concord, California, and she was born and raised in Concord, California. Now, interestingly, we even though we lived a mile or two away from one another, and we went to the same school, and her brother was my friend, and her cousin was my best friend, I never met her. She was already out and about in the world, and I met her in '95 when I got home. So I hadn't been home very long. Came home to Concord to start a family business, to work in the family business. My father, the former Marine, happens to have a portfolio of products in the telecommunications infrastructure space. So he's done well for himself, and created a lot of value in the world. And that's good because we have 9 grandkids for him to take care of, and they all got to go to college. So yeah. So I met her, and we got married, and we started my own telecommunications services business using family capital, and did that for a couple of years, and it went all right. But we really wanted to go deeper into Silicon Valley, so gave that back to the family and moved into the Valley. Found myself working for someone else, an entrepreneur who owned a large service firm that handled laptops, equipment, monitors, stuff like that. So I managed that for a couple of years and learned a lot about the Valley, and then was invited to become the director of technology at Kleiner Perkins, Caulfield and Byers. And that happened to include Integral Capital Partners, because they were a mezzanine partner at that time. And it also included the Barksdale Group, because Kleiner Perkins had invested in Netscape. And you might be familiar with the group that, comprises that original team. So that's kind of where I started in the Valley. I mean, as far as how I started in technology, I was banging around on computers in the 80s as a CompuServe kid. And then by 1990, I had started working in San Francisco on Lotus 1-2-3 spreadsheets. Yeah. Since then, I've done a lot of technology management. And obviously, along the way, I decided that I wanted to get into portfolio management. So portfolio management is really the heart of what I do today. And that includes a portfolio of startup projects, a portfolio of investments. And I manage on my own behalf and on behalf of people who invest with me a number of business concerns in one way or another that are what you might call traditional startups that are on the road to venture funding, startups that are expected at some point to make an exit in the private sector or go public.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's great, because there's a lot of, just startups during this phase that are looking to more funding, options, resources and stuff like that to keep their dreams afloat and stuff like that. And I'm excited to dive into a few topics today to, just really have ambitious vets see if pursuing, private equity funding is a choice for them, or if they're just, comfortable maybe just getting some more mentorship and figuring out how to maximize the resources that are right in front of them. So before we go ahead and dive inside of that idea, Alex, I want to just, kind of hear your perspective. I mean, you got out of the Marine Corps as an infantryman back in 1995, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And that's a hell of a lot different than nowadays when veterans are getting out, post 9/11 veterans. So I just want to kind of hear your perspective from the 90s getting out of the Corps, and how it compares to post 9/11 veterans transition. And what are some wisdom bombs that you could provide to ambitious transitioning veterans today?
Well, I think, obviously I did not get out recently, so I don't have the direct experience. I only have the observed experience. I have that I have the camaraderie and companionship that comes with a family that has a military tradition, and circle of friends that are military tradition. And what I would say, what we noticed in the 90s when we got out was that we were appreciated and valued. And that had been different than it maybe had been 20 or 30 years before that. And I would say that trend has only increased. I'd say that, in the circles that I travel in, being a veteran is similar to having a degree from one of the top universities in the country.
Yeah.
It opens doors. It doesn't get you the job necessarily. You know what I mean? Different military services are different. So you were in the Marine Corps as well, and you know that the fraternal brotherhood of Marines is especially strong.
It's deep, yeah.
Yes, especially strong, right? And that's men and women in the Marine Corps. But across all the services, I would say that pretty universally, being a veteran who's successfully transitioned out, it really is a marker of distinction, and carries a lot of weight, opens a lot of doors, gives you a lot of opportunities to share your story as an entrepreneur. And as an ambitious individual myself, and today my ambition is more outside of me, right?
That's interesting.
Yeah, when in the 90s, I was more concerned about things like paying the rent and getting the first car and meeting my wife and getting married and finding what our career track was going to be. And, it's pretty busy. There's a lot going on. And it wasn't until later in life, when I had children and met God, that, my ambition began to be, greater than just the care and feeding of my immediate circle. Today, it includes concepts of service outside of self. And that's probably one of like those golden grenades, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yes, serve outside yourself. Find something bigger than yourself to stay bonded to, because that's something that it's pretty easy to really feel the gap when you leave the service. Because in the service, you're bonded to something that's bigger than yourself. And for some people, it might be a service to, the creator. And for some people, it might be service to a community that they care deeply about. But find something to serve. And in that service, I think you'll be able to build your ambition and realize your ambition in a holistic way.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how you provided the perspective of how over time, as your responsibilities become, different verticals of responsibility, like kids, a wife, husband, whatever it may be, how like your ambitions may change, right? And stuff like that. It's not always, I want to make $1 million in business, right? And also, I don't know your thoughts on this, but being a newly married man, you become a better person, inside out, to where you actually start becoming successful more organically. And was that your same experience? I mean, because it sounds like you had a deep like awareness change, right? Because I definitely have seen that in the veteran community as well, especially the ambitious vets community as well. It's like in the first few years getting out, it's like scarcity mindset, right? It's just boom.
Right. Well, yeah, there's a lot going on. A lot of the things that you learn in the military are extremely useful in outside of the military, right? Getting up with the sun is a very useful habit. Doing something, worthwhile before breakfast, and, employing yourself in a gainful way throughout the day. Those are habits that you come to a natural accommodation with in the military. And, it's not, they're not universal. And over the long run, being successful in life, I think for me at least, has a lot to do with taking all the little advantages where you can and letting those stack up over time. I don't really look anymore for the big kung fu flip that's going to create,
Right.
it's going to create a mountain overnight. I would really rather have habits and behaviors that reflect my larger goals in life, and at the same time are shown to build success over time. Like one of my big habits is to read. I read a great deal. I probably read 30, 40, 50 pieces of information each day in various forms. And some of those pieces of information are available through Google, and some of them are services that I've come to trust over time and am willing to pay for a subscription to. And a lot of them are publications, everything from The Economist to the Wall Street Journal to the New York Times. But by reading very, very broadly, I've been able to understand what's happening in the world around me and how to act in my local space so as to be in alignment with the larger trends and waves. And, again, fortune favors the prepared. It's, as the military teaches you, it's mostly about showing up. It's mostly about being there when the event occurs and then doing your job. But you got to get up and you got to decide that you're going to get out today and row the boat and, go someplace where something interesting and exciting is likely to happen. And that's what I like to do.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a very intentional life, right? I love that, ambitious vet. If you haven't wrote that down, write it down. Fortune comes to the prepared. Figure out where you can be consuming more content that's tailored towards the industry, the passion that you want. And I think that you're going to find that fortune. But don't be looking for the big backflip right now. It takes time.
I used to look for the big backflip. I did.
Yeah.
What I learned over time is that kind of like going in the weight room, it's better to do less weight, more reps, cleaner than try to max out on the bench. You're gonna hurt yourself, and then you're not going to be able to train for a couple weeks.
Oh, and then you get depressed. I hate that feeling.
Go easy. Respect the body. Take care of yourself.
All right. So, Alex, I want to go ahead and pivot into entrepreneurship, which is something that, I think, I know you mostly as, and, a lot of ambitious vets, maybe you that's listening to this, you may know of evolution. I'm excited to kind of dive into your philosophy of entrepreneurship, Alex. So let's start off simple. Like, what is entrepreneurship to you?
Well, entrepreneurship, first of all, in my mind, is a decision. It's a decision. It's a decision that you want to do something, either around the corners or full time, on your own, for your benefit and for the benefit of the people that are closest to you. And it's a decision that you want to have control, or at least ownership in the outcome. And I think ownership is the really important part of entrepreneurship. And I think that gets missed a lot of the time. The other thing that I think gets missed a lot of the time is, especially over the last 20 years or maybe 30 years, entrepreneurship has come to be synonymous with investment. Many people think of entrepreneurship in the context of raising money and having a unicorn and so forth and so on. And it's really important, I think, to understand that most entrepreneurs never seek outside investment. The vast majority, I don't know the exact number, but I'm going to guess it's, approaching 95%, never seek outside investment. There's only a certain sets of companies that make sense for outside investment, especially early on in the traditional way of venture capital and what everybody thinks of when they think of Silicon Valley and accelerators and startups. So at Evolution, we have a number of practices that we engage and that we offer that are not necessarily catered to people who are heading for traditional investment. But almost everybody who comes to us is on that path somewhere, and have they've either found a canyon they aren't quite sure how to build a bridge across, or they've hit a wall they're not quite sure how to get over, or there's a beast on the horizon and they want to check it out before they engage. And that's usually how they find us. So I'd say, first of all, it's a decision. And then the next thing I would say about entrepreneurship is it's a lifestyle. So if you decide that you want to be an entrepreneur, then pick something that you enjoy, because it's going to occupy a lot of your time. Now, I'm not necessarily going to say you have to live your passion or anything like that, but I think that can be helpful for getting through the dark nights. I'm going to say engage your brain at least as much as you engage your heart in your ventures. I'm going to say give yourself permission to decide that that's not the instrument you want to play after all. Maybe you want to be a musician and you think, metaphorically, you want to play the guitar, and, so you start a certain kind of business. It's okay to decide in relatively short order that you want to play the drums. You're not Alex Van Halen, you're Eddie Van Halen. You go, okay, got it. I'm going to switch those things. Right? Because entrepreneurship is about experimentation. And it's about finding a product market fit, at least in the sense that I'm talking about it here, right? It's not necessarily about investment. It certainly can be. And entrepreneurship is a heck of a lot of fun, and most of the fun lies in overcoming challenges. And so that's one of the reasons that I think it really appeals to veterans. I think veterans have a problem-solving mindset that comes from the military, and so they find entrepreneurship to be relatively comfortable in that way. It's not always easy, but I will say that if you experiment long enough and you find a good product market fit, you find it's more like rolling a boulder downhill when you're successful. So if you find yourself constantly pushing the boulder of your business uphill, if you're always grinding your face off in your entrepreneurship, in your entrepreneurial endeavor, then I would say make a pivot. Find a way to make it easier on yourself, because the rewards are there in the long run. But you want to also try to, have an entrepreneurial activity that is supportive of your well-being and your interests and your proclivities. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. I think it's going back to our initial point of not doing a big backflip, right? Always looking for the next big backflip, metaphorically speaking, right? Because even whenever I went and I attended that part 1 of the Reform Reblue series with you and Charlie, who Ambitious Vet is an advisor of evolution, incredible human being, helping a lot of social impact entrepreneurs. One thing I got out of that after your initial assessment of the business is how I'm a sales guy. I like to get out there and create the materials, get out there and biz dev, build relationships. But sometimes I forget about the infrastructure, right? Yeah. And look for the next backflip. And I think us ambitious veterans can go after that, just try to leverage these superpowers that, in my case, I've gained through 10 years of sales experience, to just go out there and try to create momentum, create it, and then the infrastructure fails. So sometimes, you've got to build the foundation before you build the house, is kind of what I'm hearing.
Well, you know what? That's a really good point, Chris. So let's just talk about the road of investment for a minute.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll say. Even though most companies never seek outside investment, I encourage every entrepreneur to think of themselves as an investor and to pay themselves back as an investor would expect to be paid back. Because as an entrepreneur, what you're going to put into your projects is your time. And there is nothing more precious than your time. Your time passes at exactly the same rate as the President of the United States' time. And they don't get any more time or any less time than yours. So your time must be equally valuable to theirs. So pay yourself back as an investor and learn some things. Most entrepreneurs are going through it for the first or second or third time. Most serious investors have seen hundreds or maybe even thousands of projects. And so if you go learn what the common patterns are that investors are looking for in terms of return profiles and margins and construction and so forth, then you can treat yourself as an investor, even if you bootstrap your company, even if you take a little bit of friends and family money, even if you go get an SBA loan or you take more traditional forms of finance. you can still treat yourself as an investor, and you should. So one of the things that investors look for in a company is a team. It's one of the very first things that an investor considers. And when an investor considers a team, they're almost always looking for some combination of something called the PMF triangle, right? Product, market, finance. Product, market, finance. So, product people, and I'm a product person. Product people go to sleep, wake up thinking about the problems that they're solving. They just got to share what they know or what they built with people who can benefit from it. It's their passion. It drives them. And that's what I have. My product happens to be knowledge and experience and connections and capital. But I got to get it out there. Have to, it keeps me awake. And I don't sleep well if I haven't done something to improve my product today.
That's awesome.
Well, and most entrepreneurs are product people. Most entrepreneurs naturally have a solution to a problem, and they got to communicate it. Now, market people just got to connect. They just got to connect. They just got to surface the problem, and they get so much satisfaction from figuring out what it is that people need and what it is that motivates people and how to connect with people. And in that journey, they discover. And those discovery activities are the market side of the product market fit, right? A lot of people produce a product and then take it to market and fail. It's one of the most common reasons for failure, is the product people generally didn't actually let the market drive their creation. They let their vision drive their creation. So knowing a guy like you, Chris, knowing somebody that connects, that just has to shake 100 hands today, has to connect with 1,000 people. You need to get that person on your team in order to have a really great chance of not failing under the weight of your own product vision. And then there's that third individual, the finance individual. And the finance individual is somebody that we all know. And the main characteristic of a finance individual is they would never go into an entrepreneurial endeavor because it doesn't make any sense. Right. Your financial friend wears their pajamas around the house and has the checkbook balanced and, has everything just the way they like it and knows exactly how the bills are going to get paid for the next 3, 6, 9 months and what the retirement plan is. That person's not usually full-time in the entrepreneurial endeavor. The product person can be full-time, the market person can be full-time, the financial person, and they are different people. Okay. Nobody that I know is good at all of it. And if you really want to know this story, go check out Ernesto Ciroli's Trinity of Management. He's a fantastic speaker from right here in this area. He's been all over the world. He's created tens of thousands of businesses by this time. And I'm explaining his Trinity of Management. But his Trinity of Management is just one face of something that a lot of investors know. Now, there's one more thing that you might need in your team, and it's a hot shot. You're going into a business that's highly regulated or that has some special requirements like a medical device or anything involving genomics, right? Anything that's got, a super science attached to it. Make sure that you've got a hot shot if you're not already that hot shot, because hot shots open doors and hot shots pave the way. And hot shots may just be advisors, but you need that hot shot to give yourself a sustainable strategic advantage. That's the other thing you should be looking for, sustainable strategic advantages.
Yeah. And Ambitious Vet, you can look up Evolution Accelerator on YouTube and gain a lot of this thought leadership. As we were saying before we went live here, as I was just telling Alex, I literally binged probably 10 different videos. And Ambitious Vet, don't judge it based on the initial traction. They're just getting this going, but it's amazing content. Been in business for, close to 5 years now, part-time or full-time. And it's just every single video, I'm getting one golden grenade to accelerate me from where I'm at to where I want to go. So go and make sure you check that out, Ambitious Vet. So you've already kind of touched on it, Alex, around as far as an ambitious vet interested in entrepreneurship or raising, funding or accelerating their impact inside their business. But is there anything else that you would add for an ambitious vet to start thinking about during COVID times or a political transition right now in business as they look to kind of scale up their influence, their top line revenue within their business, or fill in the blank?
Well, there is a magazine. It's called The Economist, and it's a little bit expensive. It costs about $100 a year. You probably get it for a little bit less than that if you're a student. And it has a fantastic audio edition. And it's not the news, it's the analysis of the news. And it's produced from outside of the United States. It's a UK publication. And I'm going to just tell you that it has a definite European preference for the world. But what it really does is it broadens your mind as an American entrepreneur about how the whole thing works, how the whole system works. They cover all the continents and they cover all the major topics. And they do it weekly. And I've taken that publication since either right after I got out of the Marine Corps or maybe even before that. And that's the one thing that I've taken consistently over the years that I would recommend to anybody. It's great for on the road, etc. Don't worry if their political views don't agree with yours. The analysis is what you're interested in. I would say, just philosophically, I would say that ownership, which is, in many ways synonymous with entrepreneurship, this is an American cultural heritage. This is part of every American's cultural heritage. You don't need anyone's permission to be an entrepreneur. You don't need anyone's permission to join the ownership class in America. And even though today, and maybe over the last 20 years or 30 years again, that concept of ownership has come to be synonymous with the 10% or the 1% or the 1/10 of 1%. That's actually an American cultural legacy, and it belongs to all of us. And people may not be familiar with the tools of capital and equity and capitalism, but they are in the handbag that you were issued when you arrived in this country, however you got here, or when you decided that you wanted to be an American. Part of your immediate cultural legacy, the thing you inherited on day one, is the right to be an entrepreneur and the right to own the product of your work. So I'm going to really encourage you to go ahead and take that tool out of the bag, put it on the bench, maybe look at it a little bit, but start working with it. And when you properly consider it, it might even be a whole set of tools that, just take practice and are worth the experiment, because you can build for yourself a great deal of value. That's what we call American equity, and it's yours to have right now.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I know that we had like a conversation about a month ago, and you were just like, man, there's so many abundance of resources right now that a lot of ambitious people necessarily just don't see, because they either don't have the open door, the connections, the resources like The Economist to find it. So Alex, I just appreciate you giving us that perspective and kind of pulling us out of this scarcity mindset or anxiety economy that we see, and really seeing the abundance of resources. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that for 1 second, Chris.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of people might not be aware that 2020 is the biggest year for deals in history. There's more going on. There's more what we call dry powder, which is money waiting to be invested, money that's committed. There's more dry powder right now than at any time in history. The average size of a venture capital fund has just gone back over $100 million for the first time since 2007, according to the National Venture Capital Association. So there's plenty of capital out there, and it's looking for you. And, as an entrepreneur, you may not realize it, but you are the gold in the gold mine. You are what people are looking for. Sometimes, just speaking to those entrepreneurs, those ambitious vets in your community who, let's just concentrate on the fundraising thing for a minute. So, that's what a lot of people are interested in. You remember that scene from the movie Toy Story where the claw is going to pick the toy from the bin, and all the toys in the bin are waiting to see who the claw picked.
The aliens, yeah.
Yeah, right. So, when you're an entrepreneur and you're in the hunt for fundraising, you can feel like a toy in the bin waiting to be chosen by the claw. But the claw has a perspective too. The investor has a problem, and the problem is that all those toys look the same. How am I going to pick the 3 or 4 out of 100 that are going to get funded? And then how are we going to, inside of the 3 or 4 or 5 out of 100 that get picked, how are we going to make sure that the set we pick has at least some winners in it? Because we know that even most of the investments in tradition, one of the terms that you'll hear investment compared to is that of the lottery. So, buying a lottery ticket is similar to investing in a startup company. And, it really is a game of numbers, and every investor is looking for that advantage in finding the investment. And, as a veteran, you provide that distinction. That right there distinguishes you from the rest of the toys in the pile. And trust that, what you're looking for is out there. Now, if you go to 10 or 15 investors and they all tell you no, that doesn't necessarily mean you need to go grind your face off on 5 more. Probably time to stop and, really check into why it didn't work out for you. Because investors, especially angel investors, are generally very, very nice. They're generally quite nice, and they generally worked for their money just like you're working for your money. And they understand how hard it is to be an entrepreneur, and they are not going to tear you down, even though they're not going to invest in you. And it can be very difficult to ascertain the real reasons that you're not getting the investment that you're looking for. Now, there are free services as in a plug for Evolution. And I'll give you the link to this. We provide a checklist that's free. It has 21 points on it that you can do in the comfort of your own home, at your own kitchen table, with your spouse or your partners. That, we think if you can solve these 21 points, if you have a reasonable case on these 21 points, then you'll be in the top quarter of the projects out there. And that means you're going to improve your odds by 4x, because all the funding comes in the top quarter. Okay, so if you can get into the top quarter, then you're going to increase your odds by 400%.
Yeah,
and I think that's worth doing. And there are places like Y Combinator that have wonderful libraries. I recommend Medium, which is free and it's on the internet, medium.com. I pay for the $5 a month premium reading subscription, but Medium is a great place to feel the stories of entrepreneurship and to understand through storytelling the entrepreneur's life. You can Google your way to at least 80% of what you need to know. And I really encourage you to invest time in YouTube videos, in Google, and so forth. And then when you filled your mind with all these facts, find a friend or 5 friends, or a company like Evolution, or a group of accelerators or incubators in your area, because they're in every area now. And join so that you can get the support and the connections and the advice that you need from other entrepreneurs, because your family and friends are going to support you. But unless you already happen to be from a very entrepreneurial family, you might find that you feel a little bit on your own sometimes. And I really encourage you to get connected to the community. And Mark Millay's Reformed community, for those of you that are not familiar with it, that's how Chris Hoffman and I met. We met at the Dallas All Call. Mark Millay is a former naval aviator, and wow, he is really hitting it out of the park with helping to get veteran businesses connected to each other. Chris, what you're providing here is unbelievably valuable. I so wish that when I had gotten out in 95, I had known about groups like this and services like this. I'm not even sure they existed. And my father and I have talked about it, and both of us agree that it would have made a tremendous difference just being able to connect with guys like you. So thank you for what you do here.
Yeah, likewise. And Ambitious Vet will have that checklist at 21 points. Is that the same assessment that I did, Alex,
It is.
for our
It is.
company? Yeah.
It is. It's the
And
fundraising readiness assessment.
yeah, Ambitious Vet, any way that you can find a deeper awareness of where your weaknesses are in business and also your strengths is the best way you know how to shift focus, adapt, and overcome and hit your target. So we will have that resource in the show notes below. So make sure that you do take that assessment to see where you are at right now in your business, right? So Alex, we got a tradition here, man. 3 golden grenades, right? You've been a grenade launcher the whole time. I mean, I've learned a lot. I have tons of notes here as far as next action steps for me personally as a business leader. But if you could sum up this entire show into 3 golden grenades, right? What would you tell a veteran that's been out for at least 3 years, right? Is maybe feeling stuck in their startup or stuck in their corporate career, their side hustle. They're not feeling that satisfaction, that fulfillment. What would be 3 golden grenades that you provide that ambitious vet right now?
Well, gosh, I'll do my best, but 3 on command. Let me see. Let me start with returning to the heart of service that animates you, that makes you feel alive, right? So there's a philosophical greeting. What's alive in you today? Hello, my friend. What's alive in you today? And that's something outside of yourself typically that you're in service to. For some people, again, it's going to be a religious community. For some people, it's going to be their families. For some people, it's going to be a group that they feel a strong affinity to. But find a reason to be of service, first of all, because that's going to reanimate you. It's going to breathe life into the way that you feel today. Then I'm going to remind you that American equity is yours, especially as a veteran. To be a member of the ownership class is your cultural right. It is your heritage. Your ancestors worked hard to get you to that point, and you don't need anyone's permission to become an owner. You don't need anyone's permission to become successful, to become an entrepreneur. And then I'm going to tell you, gosh darn it, go for it. Go for it. Get up today and go look today for that product market fit, or take that product market fit that you know you have, or that product that you know you have, and go ahead and take a step with it. Maybe write it down on a sheet of paper and explain it to yourself or explain it to a friend. If you're past that point, maybe go ahead and, I don't know, buy a website. Build a website for your new product today and see if people come visit it. Maybe if you don't know how to do that, go on Facebook and start a page for it. Go to where you and your community exist and just share your idea. Your idea will stand being out in the public eye. It's not going to wither and die. If it's a good idea, it's going to flourish. It's going to feel like that boulder rolling downhill. And then all you got to do is keep your toes out of the way. Keep your toes out of the way and have a great time. Recognize that every day is going to be filled with challenges, and the rewards of entrepreneurship come on a daily basis when properly understood. And go ahead and architect for yourself as an investor. Treat yourself like the investor that you are, and make sure that when the time comes, the payout is going to be there for you and your family and your loved ones and your community, so that you can get out there and make a difference today. Thanks, Chris.
Alex, that's awesome stuff. Ambitious vet, make sure you're doing the things that have you feel like you're pushing the boulder downhill. Don't look for that next big backflip, and find the small advantages in your life. Alex, where can an ambitious vet find out more about you and also Evolution Accelerator?
Well, you can definitely find us on the web. If you search for Evolution Accelerator in Sacramento, our website is evolutionacceleration.com. We have some YouTube videos, and our product people are getting them out there. And if you would check that stuff out and share it and reshare it, that would just mean the world to us. If you would connect with us on LinkedIn or on social media, whatever your social media is, we're on most of them. please come connect with us and become part of our community, because it's through the community effect that we create sustainable value for everyone.
Love it. Alex, thanks for joining the Ambitious Vet Show, brother.
Thanks for being here, Chris, and thanks for the invitation. It's an honor.
The Ambitious Vet is available on all popular podcast platforms. Go to vettrainingcoaching.com to subscribe, rate, and share with fellow vets.
Again, thanks to Brute Force Sandbags, which come in dozens of styles and sizes, ranging in weight capacities as low as 5 pounds all the way up to 300 pounds. Regardless of the color or weight, these 100% American-made training products are built for the toughest training on the planet. All Brute Force gear is built with heavyweight military-grade textiles. That means that they can take just about anything you throw at them, Ambitious Vet. Push, pull, throw, slam, truck. Their gear is made to stand the test of time. Each piece of gear is proudly handmade in Denver, Colorado, and passes a 3-stage quality control inspection prior to coming off the line. Cool thing about them, Ambitious Vet, is every Brute Force training sandbag component carries a Brute Force Shield warranty. What is that? Well, they stand behind their sandbags 100% so you can buy with confidence. Don't like it? Send it back. They also have a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you're ready to take your training to the next level and train accordingly, click the link in the show notes below and get in it. Go get it, Ambitious Vet. Until next time, hold the vision and trust the process. Take care.